Sugar is what gives our food and drinks a sweet taste. Yet the primary producers of sugarcane, its raw material, in the Western Kenya sugar belt have unpleasant experiences with sugar millers and have nothing to smile about this sweet product that is a source of bitterness in their lives.
Uhusiano wangu na mila sio mzuri. Kwa sababu uhusiano ungekuwa mzuri ikiwa mimi ningepanda miwa, waje wakate, wapeleke, wasiage, na wanilipe.
There are three things: corruption, corruption, corruption.
The sugarcane farmer has been exploited, is being exploited, and will continue to be exploited.
The national government ran down the sugar industry.
Nenzia tiari. Sasa nifanye namna gani kwa hiyo miwa?
We have three major sugar belts in the country, namely the Nyando, the South Nyanza Sugar Zone, and the Western Sugar Belt. So, I'm in a quest to find out whether sugarcane farming makes economic sense. The search for answers leads me to Mumias town in Kakamega County. This is home to the largest sugar factory in Kenya, and it's also an area where a large number of sugarcane farmers come from.
Mimi sifurahi kuwa mkulima wa miwa kama. Sababu ni kuwa ukulima wa miwa saa hii umeingiwa na wizi mtupu.
Mimi sifurahi kwa sababu unaweza pata ile expense umeweka ndani, ile mbolea umeweka ndani, inapatikana baadaye kampuni inakudai.
Mwenye amekuja tu kukata siku moja amepata pesa. Mwenye amebeba amepata pesa. Mwenye factory wamepata pesa kidogo. Na mimi tayari wanadai shamba ni yao ama ni yangu.
Most farmers that I spoke to share the same sentiments about the state of affairs in the sector. Sugarcane farming in areas where it is grown is viewed as a prestigious venture, yet most of those who depend only on sugarcane farming live in abject poverty. Currently, we have more than 250,000 smallholder farmers in the country who supply over 92% of the sugarcane processed by sugar companies. But the problems facing the sector has now trickled down to the farmers. Meet Protas Echesa from Mumias in Kakamega County, who has been doing sugarcane farming for the past 30 years.
Siku hizi sugarcane farming ni mbaya sana. Kwa sababu mimi nakumbuka wakati nilianza kulima miwa, malipo yalikuwa mazuri, lakini siku hizi maneno imeenda mrama.
Most farmers in this region are contracted farmers. This means that they provide the land, the miller surveys it, then gives the farmer farm inputs whose amount plus interest accrued is deducted after harvesting. But this is the beginning of the farmers' problems.
Surveyor anamalizia kazi yake kwa ofisi, na wakati wanaanza kukudebit ile input ambayo amekupatia iko juu na actual sense kwa ground portion ni kidogo.
We have had an exercise where they resurveyed the farms belonging to farmers, and where a farmer had a neck of land, the surveyors, because they were being paid on the basis of the land they have surveyed, they used to increase this by half an acre, sometimes 3 acres. But you look at it as maybe something that could be normal. But there are some charges the company charges a farmer based on the size of farm. When I first became a member of parliament in 2008, a ton of sugarcane was going for 1,200 per ton. Currently, a ton of sugarcane is going for 3,200, a whole difference of 2,000 shillings.
Malipo sio mazuri. Kama hivi juzi nilisaini shamba kama nimekata around January, February, na mpaka saa hizi sijalipwa hiyo. Ikiwa wanakulipa ile kidogo ambayo labda utapata, watachukua more than 6 months. Watoto watakula namna gani? Watoto watasoma namna gani? Na mwenyewe utakimudu maisha namna gani?
Apart from delay in payments, farmers are also faced with the issue of debit return, commonly referred to as DR. A DR simply means that the total amount of deductions done by the miller is more than the actual amount of sugarcane supplied by the farmer. So, after supplying cane, the farmer still owes the miller.
Mwishowe kungojea miwa baada ya miezi 24 kuja kutoa, naenda kusaini na wenzangu. Naambiwa mzee Protas, itabidi ulipe kampuni shilingi 10,000. Sasa nikashangaa.
Echesa shows me one of his recent statements. According to the statement, he supplied approximately 57 tons of cane at a rate of 3,825 shillings per ton. This earned him about 218,000 shillings, but the total amount of deductions and interest accrued was 213,000. So this means that after waiting for 18 months for this harvest, Echesa took home 5,000 shillings only.
Shida iliyoko sisi na wakulima, deduction wanafanya na watu wa Mumias. Wewe mkulima huwezi kuwa huko. Sasa huwezi ukajua kama wanafanya ya ukweli ama ya uongo.
Millers have been put on the spotlight about their weighbridges and means of cane transportation from the farm. Richard Ogendo, the Secretary General, Kenya Sugar Growers Association, KESGA, has been vocal on this.
There is a problem in all milling areas on issues of harvesting and transport. We have had some cases where we are doubting even weighbridges of some of these mills if they are up to the required standard, because they seem to be measuring less. When you go outside this country, say in South Africa or even here, Sudan here, started the other day on sugar. The largest sugar factory this side of the world, Kenana, is government-owned, government-run, because it is in the interest of government. But here, anything that government owns doesn't work. So what's wrong?
Currently, we have 9 sugar millers in the country. This is Mumias Sugar Factory, West Kenya Sugar Factory and Butali Sugar Company, all in Kakamega County. Nzoia Sugar Factory in Bungoma County, Kibos Sugar and Allied Industry Limited, Chemelil Sugar Company and Muhoroni Sugar Company Limited in Kisumu County, Sony Sugar Company Limited in Migori County, and Soin Sugar Company in Kericho. Among these, 4 are private factories while the other 5 are parastatals.
I think the industry is overtaxed. We call it double taxation. There is the issue of the recently introduced VAT on cane transport also, 16%, which has brought about disquiet amongst the farmers. And we think that perhaps Parliament should look into this issue again, so that that burden on sugarcane farmers can be lightened, and even for the millers, because it obviously has an effect on the profitability.
Even as millers complain of overtaxation, high production cost and unregulated importation of sugar as the genesis of their woes, they have come under sharp criticism from various quarters. For instance, Mumias Sugar Company, which is the biggest sugar factory in the country in terms of production and supply, has been facing a myriad of problems, some of which is blamed on the management. Recently, the company announced the sacking of its chief executive, Peter Kebati. This was after an audit report by KPMG found him and other senior officers responsible for losses amounting to 1.1 billion arising from the importation of sugar without the board's approval. This also came at a time when the company recorded a loss of 2.7 billion shillings in the year ended June 2014. The dwindling fortunes in the company resulted to its removal from NSE 20 share index firms by Nairobi Securities Exchange.
Removing the sugar Mumias means the NSE is not tracking the performance of the sugarcane in the economy. So we can't really be able to tell how the sugarcane is actually performing, because now it's no longer being tracked. But it was a right move, because at the end of the day, given the toxic level in terms of how the Mumias brand has actually gotten, it's something that needed to be done.
Some stakeholders believe that sugarcane has become a political crop, and the politics of the day dictates on how farmers get treated.
In the early 80s and 90s, when the problem of imports started, the government in power then was using it, because sugarcane is mainly found in Western Kenya. So how then do you control people? You make sure they're impoverished, then you can control them. During the NAK Kibaki years, there was some change when the current deputy president was the Minister for Agriculture. Things just took a turn for very good. Then along the way, politics again came in. Then it has gone down. Right now, it is at its lowest, because nobody cares. I mean, how many votes are you going to get from this side of the world?
When you look at the poverty levels in Western, we're looking at over 50% people living below poverty line. Most of these people are farmers. Most of the borders you see are farmers. They're both farmers and cane cutters. They have a lot of land. Politicians have used sugarcane to wield they will use it to say, elect me, I will get to parliament, I will ensure we get a good manager, I will ensure our factory runs very well, I will ensure we get paid better. He gets to parliament, he gets in bed with the managers, he gets paid, he keeps quiet. I would like to ask politicians to keep off the crop. Because at the end of the day, the continual wielding of it as a political tool is making the people more poor.
Kenya consumes about 750,000 metric tons of sugar annually, against a production of approximately 520,000 metric tons by local millers combined. This presents a deficit of over 200,000 metric tons. So to bridge the gap, importers have been allowed to bring in not more than 200,000 metric tons a year. But this is not the case, as imported sugar has flooded the market. In the current budget, the Minister for Finance exempted local gazetted manufacturers who use refined industrial sugar from payment of sugar development levy, a move that stakeholders see as a curse to the industry.
Why do we, for example, not tax industrial sugar? And it is the one giving us a big problem, because it comes into this country, is repackaged, and it is sold in supermarkets.
How does a supermarket like Nakumatt, like Tuskys, pack its sugar? Where do they produce it? Where do they produce sugar? And we know they do not have any manufacturing entity. Under law in repacking dictates that before you pack any sugar and label your name, you must have consulted the manufacturer.
A spot check in leading supermarkets reveals that most of them sell their branded sugar at a much less price than branded sugar by sugar millers. This is suspected to be imported and taxed sugar from low-cost producer nations that have flooded the market.
Our cost of production is in the region of about $700 a ton, but developed economies like Brazil, Mauritius are averaging just about $300. So you can imagine that difference is substantial.
Some of the things that make it cheaper for other countries to produce sugar include subsidized taxes on sugar, modernization in the milling plants, government support and regulations that support the industry. Early this year, the Kenya Sugar Board seized 46,000 bags of imported duty-free sugar worth 184 million shillings.
A few months ago, you saw that they were destroying some consignment of sugar in Mombasa. I stand to be corrected. The sugar that was destroyed was actually sugar that had been condemned by Kenya Bureau of Standards. It was not sugar that was impounded. Sugar that has been impounded has never been destroyed in this country.
Kenya Sugar Board could not be reached to comment on the issues raised. Sugar Board's mandate included regulating, developing, and promoting the sector, coordination of all activities of individuals and organizations within the industry, and facilitation of equitable access to the benefits and resources of the industry. But now, these functions are taken over by the Agriculture, Livestock and Food Authority, also known as AFA. According to the AFA Act, AFA will take over functions of 10 agricultural parastatals, among them Kenya Sugar Board.
If we could not solve our problems with this sugar board, now how are we going to solve these problems with a huge organization called AFA?
As per the current constitutional dispensation, agriculture is a devolved function. So we speak to Wycliffe Oparanya, the governor Kakamega County, which is home to 3 sugar factories, among them Mumias Sugar, the largest sugar factory in the country.
Agriculture has been devolved, but the national government is still hanging on 20%, the whole in Mumias. Me, I'm like an outsider, because I have no role to play, but because agriculture is devolved, farmers are always on me. I've written to the national government that to empower me deal with the issues that you have raised, give me the 20%. Devolve also to me 20% of the shares in the Mumias Sugar.
20% of Mumias Sugar Company is government owned, while the rest 80% is owned by private investors. Even though Mumias Sugar Company has diversified its production, still they are not making profits, hence not being able to pay farmers.
But what happened in Mumias, they overcommitted themselves to big projects, ethanol project, cogeneration at the same time, water, and these projects have not broken even. The County Assembly approved 200 million Kenya shillings to be given to the company to pay off the farmers. And we want to have a separate company contracted to pay off farmers.
Early September, the government also announced that it will release 1.1 billion shillings to pay Western Kenya sugar belt farmers whose factories have failed to pay them.
Farmers have gone without payment from February to date. And what we are seeing is something called tokenism. You give factory money to pay farmers, but you don't address the real cause. Why is this factory not paying in the first place? What happened?
The contribution of the sugar industry on Kenya's economy cannot be ignored. The sector employs about 10.7 million Kenyans who depend on it directly or indirectly for their livelihoods. The subsector accounts for about 15% of the agricultural GDP. The fact that the sugar sector is faced by countless problems is like an open secret. From the farmer and the various leaders to the miller, one thing is clear, that the industry is headed towards downfall if the issues raised are not solved.